Hello, everyone, and welcome to You Can Rise Again. I'm your host, Tsitsi, Audrey, and I am joined again by Dumi, Senda. So I caught up with Dumi a few days ago when he was in central London, and we did an interview with him. However, because this man is such a busy man and he's so difficult to get hold of, we didn't manage to finish our interview, but he agreed again to spend some time with us today. So I'm so happy to have him again on the show. Welcome, Dumi Senda. Thank you so much for spending some time again, for allowing time to join us again. I'm so happy to have you on the show again.
Oh, no, thank you so much. When Tsitsi asks, the answer is yes. It may well be okay. Let's figure out when we can get it done, but the answer is always yes. So thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you so much. How's your family? How's your wife and children? Yeah.
They are doing better than me. So which is a good thing.
That's good.
They're all well. Thank you so much for asking.
Yeah, in a way, you know what? I actually thought that this is maybe a good thing because I managed to actually go back to that interview that we did, and I managed to pick up some things from there that I wanted to ask you. So I thought maybe that was actually good to sort of like take some time out and regroup and come back again to finish off the interview. So I'm just going to dive into the questions.
Let's go for it.
You're in the hot seat.
Adjusting myself.
All right. So what I wanted to ask Dumi, because for me, you know me, I'm passionate about mental health. I'm passionate about, people's feelings and how we can make people better. This is the reason why I came up with You Can Rise Again, because I like to see people rise. So when I was looking at your story, I saw Dumi, who is the baby Dumi, who was separated from mom at a very young age. Then I saw Dumi, who was growing up as still a child and having to cope with certain things. You're growing up with your grandparents, and I think it was dad's side, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
so you're growing up with your stepmom as well, and you had to find coping mechanisms to deal with certain challenges that you were facing as a child. Then from that Dumi to a Dumi who came to England. He struggled a little bit financially, maybe to find a job. He worked in a factory. Then from that Dumi to a Dumi who's now like who decided to go to school and further your education. You have your master's degree now. And from that Dumi to becoming a Dumi who's now a life coach, who's now, the diversity and inclusion lead for the BBC. So I actually saw the way you transitioned from that to where you are now. And that was really, really powerful for me. So I wanted to ask you, because, in our society or in the community, we have people who are sort of like stuck in this place where they're full of anger and resentment because of what was done to them when they were young, when they were babies. You can hear certain people saying, I'm the way I am because my dad left me when I was a child, or my mom left me, or my mom did this, my dad used to hit my mom, so this is the reason why I'm like this. So they're sort of like stuck in this place and they cannot move on. So I wanted you to speak to that person who is in that place. How did you manage to shift your mindset from what happened to you to where you are now?
Thank you so much. And I should probably get you to write my autobiography.
Very attentive.
You captured the journey really well. Thank you for that. No, so it's firstly, I want to start by actually recognizing that I suppose to make the point that I can never ever pretend to be in a place where I can claim to understand what someone else, never mind everyone else, are going through and what that experience is like for them. So my experience is my experience, and it's not a measure for how other people might experience their own lives. So, I want to start there. And so therefore, perhaps start with a bit of empathy, I suppose, to say, recognizing that life can be really difficult, and there are people who have experienced things that are, that I can never ever imagine experiencing, and a lot of those people often actually have a lot of strength and courage, sometimes often more than they even know. So I suppose that, that's where it brings me back to, okay, given what, that you are going through, whatever you're going through, and none of us choose, what happens to us. The only thing that we have power over is what we do, or how we respond, given whatever has happened to us. So I suppose it's really recognizing that actually we don't control the external circumstances life throws at us. There's very little of the external stuff that we can control. But actually, what created us all and gave us a strength, and that strength is that quiet inner strength inside of us, which often is not actually, we're not aware of. And I'm using the word strength here probably for a bit, lack of a better word, because I'm not suggesting by strength, I'm not suggesting that you basically defy all the odds, walk through the storm, and you're like some sort of hero, kind of, in a very what's the word, in our culture and language, in the Shona culture and language, what people call munakasimba kind of way, someone who's strong, right? Actually, strong sometimes is about actually, recognizing our vulnerabilities. That in itself is a form of strength. But I suppose the lessons that I have learned from my journey, firstly, I think one thing that really helped me to shift my mindset in the way that you are outlining was recognize that I'm not in charge of what life throws at me. I'm not in charge of it. So firstly, accept that what I've gone through in life, I've gone through. I cannot undo that. I've gone through that. I was born in the family that I was born in, and and that unlocked many experiences. A lot of which were very, very positive, but also some which may have been very challenging. But actually, even the challenging ones present an opportunity for growth. So for me, I think that's that realization that is kind of seen me through, and probably enabled me to be in a place where even when I look at where I am right now, it's like a dream that I spend time working with some of the most known organizations in the world. Here I am on a show, with things happen. That's for me. All these things are things that I would have to pinch myself to think that I could be doing this, and probably thousands of people are going to be watching our interview. When you look at my background, I shouldn't be that person that people can say actually we can learn from your story. So I suppose it's always trying to see the silver lining around those dark clouds. I think that's where that's the kind of strength I'm talking about. It's not a strength of I'll defy everything and I'll overturn everything, but rather it's a strength of sometimes we have to actually go through the storm. But having gone through the storm, what lessons are we taking as we are walking through? And realize that it could be an illness that you've gone through. There are people, some whom I know who live with chronic illness, and chronic disease, and live in pain every day. I've never experienced that, right? That must be really, really challenging. But I suppose, who are you becoming as a result of what you're going through? That's really the key. Because either way, we are going to go through what we're going through, but the becoming bit is what we can choose. It's what we can determine, really. So I always draw on the story of the Lion King, because I find it remarkably very similar in some ways to my journey when I look at Simba in the Lion King. So if you think about it, maybe Zimbabwe, looking at Zimbabwe is our pride zone. It's our home. It's where we were brought up. It's where we came from, right? It's where you have a sense of belonging. And of course, at the time when I was growing up, even though I already had those dynamics in many ways of feeling like the outsider child, on both sides of my side of the family, my father's side of the family as well as my mother's side of the family. But still, the fact that I was in Zimbabwe, I was born, and I was still with family, in whatever dynamic that was. There was a sense of belonging in that sense. Moving to the UK, in some sense, but also losing my father. Losing my father, then my father passing away in 1998, and then moving to the UK was like being cast away from Pride Rock, into the wilderness, like Simba was, right? And in the wilderness, if we look at the story of Simba in the wilderness, he spent time eating worms with Pumbaa and Timon, right? If we know anything about lions, the natural diet of a lion is not eating worms. So, so what's the lesson behind that story? It's that actually sometimes going through the storm, going through our wilderness, part of that is we have to eat worms. And I don't mean that eat worms literally, but we have to go through things that are very much in our discomfort zone, that don't sometimes that even undermine us or don't validate our humanity even sometimes, or sense of self, But actually, going through that is a necessary part of our development for what God is preparing us for.
Yes.
Look at Simba's story, right? If Simba had gone back to Pride Rock and try and confront his uncle, what's his name? The one who cast him away, I'm forgetting now. His uncle Scar, right? If he'd gone back and try and fight him, he was too small. He was too young. He didn't have the right development and strength to be able to confront that issue. So sometimes we go through our problems and issues because life is preparing us to serve on even bigger platforms, So now I look back at the time when I was working in warehouses, sweeping factory floors, and and working in nursing homes, and all these places. When I was doing that work back in the day, I used to, of course, I didn't, I didn't see, in some sense, I didn't see the value of what I was being taught, but even the value of the work I was doing at the time.
Yes.
But with hindsight, now I realize actually that, a lot of my values and perhaps my approach to life, how I relate with others, how I conduct myself working with organizations, all these things were shaped during that kind of that work, And it's important for me to emphasize that, someone who's doing that work, I'm not, it's important, this is not about if you're working in a warehouse or you're working in a nursing home. It's not suggesting that work is less meaningful. And that more meaningful work is working with corporate organizations. That's not true. Really, what makes any work meaningful is whether it aligns with our sense of purpose and with our own sense of serving a greater cause than us. So you could be a lawyer, you could be a doctor, you could be, and still not have a sense of fulfillment and not be aligned with your purpose, right? But you could be working in a warehouse, you could be a street sweeper, but actually, as MLK said, be the best street sweeper you can be. Whatever that you're doing, be the best you can be. And I think we can only be the best if we are aligned with our sense of purpose and we get that fulfillment that, I feel like I'm contributing towards something greater than just my individual needs. So I suppose that was my wilderness moment. And then if you remember what happened to Simba, going back to the Lion King, he then, the baboon came, right? Rafiki hit him in the head, right? And Simba complains, why did you do that? And he hits him again in the head. So in many ways, I feel like life has hit me in the head several times. And for life hitting me in the head, so that was my wake up point. And that led me now to go back on a long journey towards my pride road, to go and kind of connect with my purpose, connect with my sense of servitude, and to go back and study at the age of 30, studying with fellow students who were 10 years, if not more, younger than me. By then I'd become a father, and all those challenges of going back to university while you are, mature student with all these responsibilities, right? That was my journey towards going back to my pride road, and that journey still continues in many ways, but I don't think, aligning with our purpose is something that is ever fully complete. I think it's always a continuous journey. So we're always moving towards our pride road, in different ways. I still have to move towards my pride road in the way I am, not just in the kind of professional sense, but also as a father, also as as a citizen. So now, for instance, some of the questions that keep me up at night is, how should I be contributing towards my country, Zimbabwe, right? What's my role to play? And one of my biggest worries, that kind of keeps me, thinking, reflecting on this is, I don't want to be one of those people who've been part of a generation that was inconsequential. When we look at the generation of our fathers, my father was a soldier, so he participated in the liberation of our country from colonialism. And I look at our generation, I'm like, what's our part? Our part can't just be, getting a job and paying bills and feeding your family, and then and then putting aside money to buy, for a fancy coffin and being sunk in the ground. That's inconsequential. That's not a meaningful life. So I'm asking myself these questions: what role should I and others play?
Yes.
To make Zimbabwe a country that we can live to our children, our children's children, and feel that they can look at our legacy and say, well, they were not perfect, but they contributed something meaningful that they passed on to us. So these are the kind of questions that I ask myself.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you so much. That, you know what, I think what you have explained, I'm sure somebody somewhere is going to be helped by the information that you have given, because I think it's important for people to understand that you are not what you went through. I think that change of mindset, it is very important, that you are not defined by what problems you've been through, whatever challenges you've been through. That is not you. It was something that you went through. And I think it's also important to realize that when we say going through something, you are going through, you're not staying there. You're not staying there. It's a process. It's a you have to walk through it. And I always say, I don't know whether I'm right or wrong, but I always say you can never be a person of impact if you have never been through something. You can never be able to help somebody else. I mean, when I say help, I don't mean giving money or, you can never be able to lift somebody up emotionally, mentally, if you haven't been through some stuff yourself.
And I hope your viewers, if they'll go back and watch Lion King, then maybe this time they might, it might just it might be a different experience watching that movie for them, because it might give them a perspective that they didn't have before when they're watching it. Sometimes we watch movies as entertainment, and there's nothing wrong with that. But also there are lessons we can draw out. I mean, Simba could have never been able to then go back and essentially, rescue the legacy of his, I use people as a euphemism, but go back and fight the kind of ill that was destroying Hydro without having been cast in the wilderness, without having even made those mistakes like when his father was telling him about don't go to the kind of edge of Pride Rock where the hyenas live, right? So we are going to make mistakes too. So we all have our moments of making mistakes. I would not be doing the work that I'm doing if I hadn't made some of the mistakes that I'm doing. But the key is being open to learning from our mistakes and growing from what we go through. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dumi, for that. So my last question for you is
already,
how does it feel to work for the BBC? I've been meaning to ask you that.
Let's go there.
How did you end up working with the BBC?
I posted on my LinkedIn page the other day. So for those who use LinkedIn, feel free to connect with me. So you can find me as Dumi Senda on LinkedIn, but you can also find me on other platforms. So I posted on my LinkedIn the other day that I was pleasantly surprised when I joined the BBC that people at the BBC are quote unquote normal. That for me that was the biggest surprise, because I suppose probably many people can relate with this. As an outsider, I've always interacted with the BBC, watching I'm one of those kind of news junkies. I watch news every day. I like to be informed about what's happening in the world, what's happening around me, and so I'd always interacted with the BBC. But I'd never ever imagined. It was never ever on my radar at all that I could ever work with the BBC. It's not something that I aspired towards. It's not something that I ever thought about. And then so from the blue, I got approached. So so I suppose I could say I was headhunted really. I got approached by an organization that was recruiting for the BBC. And they mentioned, they said, hey, we are helping the BBC to recruit for this role, and we think your profile would be a really good fit. I'm like, the BBC? Okay. I got this call probably around 5:30, towards the end of the day, kind of, about to not necessarily finish my day, but finish my working day and get into other things. And then the person says, well, actually, the closing date for this application is midnight that same day, and I just thought, forget. I know how extensive the process of just putting together an application, and really tailoring that application and making it, as optimal as you can. So, so my immediate thought was, forget it. I'm not going to bother, And second, I thought, no, I just couldn't see how I would fit for the BBC in any way. I just thought it's a bit above me, right? But then I went away and I said to them, oh, I'll have a look. I went away, an hour or so after that. I said, you know what, Dumi, actually sit down and have a look and read the job description. And I always believe that I believe the universe always, they always present opportunities for you which are right for you at that moment. This is my belief, at least from my own experience. And I said, I don't think it's a coincidence that that I've been approached. And even if I didn't get this role, there's something that I can learn just from going through the application process. So that's fine. I'm not going to worry about whether I'll get it or not. But so who was it? I think it was Les Brown, motivational speaker, American motivational speaker. He speaks about when you get approached for an opportunity, and also I think Richard Branson says the same thing. When you get approached for an opportunity, the answer should be yes, and then the how, figure that out later.
Yes.
Sometimes the how you have to go into. You may not necessarily have you don't have to have all the answers at once. Sometimes you grow into it. So I read, and when I started breaking it down, I'm like, actually, I think life and God has been preparing me for this one. And I began to realize that actually the things that they are looking to drive, and so I joined the BBC at a time where it's going through the biggest systemic change in 3 decades, transforming to a digital first approach of working. And this role, he has a remit across all of England with over 3,000 employees, overseeing 6 big, regions, English regions, essentially across England, And I thought, actually, when I look at my journey has always been about saving communities. I know, I spent years traveling with my little drum, which you might be able to see just behind us there, because we're on Zoom. But traveling across the country with my drum, telling stories in schools, about life in rural Zimbabwe for children, drawing on my own experiences, because I feel that I can draw on my own experiences and journey to broaden the horizons of these young people and as well as their educators, and hopefully give them something meaningful for their learning, because that was an aspect that was missing in how the education system basically is organized. Then I also look at, I spent particularly in the wake of COVID, and then George Floyd, I spent 2 to 3 years working with organizations across multiple sectors. I mean, diversity and inclusion went from being a nice to have to a must have for organizations, and big organizations and banks and tech firms didn't have a diversity and inclusion strategy. So they were reaching out to people like me and others, actually to say, hey, help us. How do you put together a meaningful diversity inclusion strategy that can drive meaningful impact for your people and for your organization. So, that's the kind of work I've been doing, and I was lucky to work with, different organizations such as the Diversity Practice, Black British Business Awards, and, collaborating with them across multiple, sectors. I was lucky to work across 5 continents, helping organizations to go from how to diagnose where you are and get a sense of where you are in benchmark, to how to then bring your people along on a journey to build a strategy that is the buy-in. I prefer the word commitment to buy-in, and then you can all go on this shared journey that can lead to inclusivity, diversity, and equity in a meaningful way.
Yes.
So I realized that actually, I do have the skill set.
Yeah.
But in addition, perhaps also something that I have is an ability to relate with people from different backgrounds and at whatever level they are, whether they are whether they are in someone who's approaching the conversation from a very grassroots level, and someone who may not have university education, right? I'm able to relate with that person because I've been that person. Yes. I am that person. I did my journey is not defined by going to university. But equally, if it's someone who's approaching the conversation and drawing on language, that might be aligned to academic language. Also, I've been that person. I've been on that journey.
Yes.
So I'm able to draw on those kind of multiple facets of my very complex and multi-checkered journey to such a role. So joining the BBC, then to your question, how has it been like, right? So as you can imagine, coming in on a role like that, people are like, let's get going, right? Dumi's on the roll now. Let's do the work. Let's see. Yes. Let's do the activities. And I spent the first few weeks saying to people, no, let's not, right? Yes. Actually, because I was very intentional about ensuring that I spend as much time as possible speaking with as many people as possible, right across England. So I visited, at this point, I probably visited 70% of the 49 bases of BBC right across England. So that means I've been to, multiple cities and towns. I've been to places like Cornwall, which takes like 5-6 hours to get to from where I live, and probably to the north as well across the country. But going around and shaking hands and speaking with all our colleagues right across all the levels, and not coming in as someone who's got the answers, but coming in as someone who wants to hear what their own understanding is of what we're doing well at, what we could do better at, where the gaps are, and how we can move forward. Now, drawing on all those kind of insights, as well as the BBC is fantastic for generating data, actually. So it's one of the best organizations that I've seen, and the data that they generate, So drawing on those data sets and then these conversations that I've been having with people right across England, I've developed a D&I plan. And I'm using the word plan intentionally as opposed to strategy, because before I came, there was already a BBC strategy, or pan-BBC strategy for all the BBC across all the nations. But it was about developing a plan that can help us to take that strategy and make it really practical, and so that it becomes a part of the work that everyone is doing. So that diversity and inclusion goes from being an additional thing or an add-on or afterthought, actually becomes who we are and and what we do, And so so that plan, I'm glad to say, is being launched on the 18th of April.
Wow,
we're going to,
that's amazing.
An event in Birmingham at the Mailbox, the BBC base in Birmingham. Then after that, we're going to do 3 regional events across the country, and then each location will also then start their own kind of D&I, which will then be continuous and become a monthly meeting. So, so can you see we're going from kind of almost high level this strategy to making it really practical and building a framework around it, and also bringing everyone on that journey. So working for the BBC has been fantastic. I really love just how people are relatable. The outside perception was this would be a dog environment. It would be everyone highly competitive. You have to be proving yourself every day. I'm not saying it's perfect. That's why we are doing this work. That's probably why they hired someone like me to do that work. But it's actually very collaborative. people are open. And I feel like the idea we're having, the conversations we're having, particularly with the kind of executive leaders across the BBC, is not about why we should do it. It's more about how do we do it.
Yes.
And I think that's the right conversation here. If we're still having conversations about why, I think you've kind of really missed the boat, right? At this point, well, I think everyone understands that diversity and inclusion is important. Of course, it is. All of us have to feel a sense of belonging, a sense of being valued in the workplace as well as wider society. Now, let's figure out how. And how is about doing it together. It's not about Dumi coming with all the answers. It's about all of us, doing it together. So that's the really the work that I'm leading.
Wow, that's amazing, Dumi. You know what? I'm so inspired by your story. And I mean, from the beginning until now, and I'm sure someone out there is also inspired by your story. I'm so proud of you, of the things that you have achieved. And I just want to thank you. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but I just want to thank you for, for making yourself available for this. I really wanted to have this interview with you because I love hearing stories where you come from the bottom and you go up. So that, somebody else who is at their lowest point can also see that, you can rise again. This is the whole purpose of this. So I'm so thankful. Thank you so much for your time. And I wish you all the best. May you continue to rise and may God continue to open doors for you. Thank you so much, Dumi. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
All right, no problem. Thank you. Bye.
Well, that's all we've got for today. If you enjoyed today's episode, just hit the subscribe button and the notification bell for future content and future episodes. And you can also catch us on Facebook or Instagram at You Can Rise Again. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, you can rise again. Until the next time, bye.